The United States, under the current administration, has intensified its efforts to curb illegal immigration. These efforts have resulted in a surge of deportations, impacting individuals and families across the globe. Indian nationals, among others, have found themselves caught in the crosshairs of these stringent immigration policies. The sudden uprooting from their lives and the uncertain future they face upon return have sparked outrage and concern in India. The new wave of deportations is characterized by its swiftness and seemingly indiscriminate nature. Individuals who have lived and worked in the United States for years, some even decades, are being deported with little warning. Families are being torn apart, leaving behind loved ones and shattered dreams. The human cost of these policies is undeniable and has become a point of contention between India and the United States. The situation has created a climate of fear and uncertainty among the Indian diaspora in the United States. Many live in a constant state of anxiety, unsure if they will be the next target of these deportation drives. This fear has had a chilling effect on communities, with individuals hesitant to engage with authorities or even seek help when needed. The situation demands urgent attention and a compassionate approach that takes into account the human cost of these policies.
The arrival of deported individuals at Indian airports has become a poignant spectacle, drawing attention from media outlets and the public alike. Images of bewildered families reuniting with their loved ones, often after years of separation, are a stark reminder of the human cost of these deportations. The media, both print and electronic, has been actively covering these arrivals, highlighting the plight of the deportees and the emotional turmoil they undergo. Reactions from family members have been a mix of relief and despair. While overjoyed to have their loved ones back, they are also grappling with the uncertainty of their future. The deportees often return to a country they barely remember, stripped of the lives they built over years of hard work and sacrifice. The sudden transition and the lack of support systems in place add to their vulnerability. Public reactions have been largely sympathetic, with many expressing outrage at the treatment meted out to these individuals. Social media platforms have become spaces for sharing stories, expressing solidarity, and mobilizing support for the deportees. However, there are also concerns about the lack of adequate rehabilitation programs and the long-term implications of this influx of deportees on the Indian economy.
The Indian government has found itself walking a diplomatic tightrope in response to the United States deportation drive. On the one hand, it is obligated to protect its citizens abroad and ensure their well-being. On the other hand, it is mindful of maintaining cordial relations with the United States, a crucial strategic partner. This delicate balancing act is evident in the government's statements and actions. Government officials have expressed concern over the situation, urging the United States to adopt a more humane approach towards deportation. They have emphasized the need for a comprehensive dialogue to address the root causes of illegal immigration and to find a solution that respects the rights of all involved. The government has also assured its citizens of its commitment to providing consular assistance and facilitating their return to India. However, critics argue that the government's response has been largely reactive and lacking in concrete action. They point to the absence of a clear strategy to deal with the influx of deportees and the lack of adequate rehabilitation programs to assist them in rebuilding their lives. The government's handling of the situation has drawn criticism from opposition parties and human rights groups alike.
Diplomatic tensions, immigration takes center stage. The issue of deportation has added a layer of complexity to the already multifaceted relationship between India and the United States. Immigration, once a relatively minor point of contention, has now taken center stage in bilateral discussions. Upcoming diplomatic visits between the two countries are expected to be dominated by this issue, with both sides under pressure to find common ground. India is expected to raise its concerns about the United States deportation policies, urging for a more humane and compassionate approach. The Indian government is likely to push for a pathway to legal status for undocumented Indian immigrants who have established roots in the United States. The issue of H-1B visas, a contentious topic in recent years, is also expected to feature prominently in the discussions. The United States, on the other hand, is likely to reiterate its commitment to enforcing its immigration laws and securing its borders. The U.S. administration might offer assurances of a fair and transparent deportation process, but is unlikely to budge on its core stance on illegal immigration. The diplomatic tightrope walk continues, with both countries aiming to protect their interests while maintaining the semblance of a strategic partnership.
Section 6. Ethical quandaries experts weigh in. The U.S. quote, "S intensified deportation drive has ignited a fierce debate among legal scholars, human rights activists, and ethicists. At the heart of the debate lie fundamental questions about human rights, the ethics of immigration enforcement, and the responsibilities of nations towards non-citizens within their borders. Experts argue that the current approach to deportation raises serious ethical concerns. One of the primary concerns raised is the violation of due process rights. Critics argue that the expedited deportation procedures often fail to provide individuals with a fair chance to present their case or access legal counsel. This lack of due process, they argue, undermines the very principles of justice and fairness that the U.S. legal system is built on. Another ethical dilemma relates to the separation of families. Deportations often result in the tearing apart of families, with parents being separated from their children, sometimes even U.S. citizen children. This separation, experts argue, inflicts irreparable emotional damage on families and raises serious concerns about the well-being of children caught in the crossfire. The ethical debate also extends to the conditions in detention centers, which have been widely criticized for overcrowding, inadequate medical care, and reports of abuse. Experts argue that these conditions violate the basic human rights of detainees and call for urgent reforms to ensure their safety and well-being.
Section 7. Uprooted Lives. Personal Stories of Hardship. Behind the statistics and the political rhetoric lie the heart-wrenching stories of individuals whose lives have been upended by deportation. These personal accounts offer a glimpse into the human cost of these policies, highlighting the struggles, the emotional turmoil, and the uncertain futures that deportees face upon return. Take, for instance, the story of Rajesh, a software engineer who had been living in the US for over a decade. After a minor visa issue, Rajesh was detained and subsequently deported, leaving behind his wife and 2 young children, both US citizens. The deportation not only separated him from his family, but also shattered his dreams of providing them with a better future. Then there is Priya, a single mother who had been working as a nurse in the US for several years. Priya was deported after being stopped for a broken taillight. She returned to India with her 5-year-old son, facing an uncertain future and the daunting task of rebuilding her life in a country she barely remembered. These stories, each unique and heartbreaking, are a stark reminder of the human toll of deportation. They underscore the need for empathy, compassion, and a more humane approach to immigration enforcement that takes into account the individual circumstances and the long-term consequences of these policies.
Section 8. The Global Migrant Crisis, a Shared Responsibility. The plight of Indian nationals facing deportation from the U.S. is a microcosm of a larger global crisis, the crisis of migration. Millions of people around the world are on the move, driven from their homes by conflict, persecution, poverty, and climate change. This mass displacement of people presents a complex challenge for nations worldwide, demanding a coordinated and compassionate global response. The current approach to migration, characterized by closed borders, restrictive immigration policies, and the criminalization of migrants, is failing to address the root causes of this global crisis. It is also failing to uphold the fundamental rights and dignity of migrants, who are often treated as commodities rather than human beings. Addressing this crisis requires a paradigm shift, a shift from a security-centric approach to one that prioritizes human rights, international cooperation, and shared responsibility. This includes addressing the root causes of displacement, creating safe and legal pathways for migration, and ensuring that migrants are treated with dignity and respect. Section 9. Towards a Just Future, Hope and Uncertainty. The future remains uncertain for the thousands of Indian nationals facing deportation from the U.S. and for the millions of migrants around the world seeking a better life. The current political climate, characterized by rising nationalism and xenophobia, does not offer much hope for a swift resolution to this crisis. However, amidst the despair, there are glimmers of hope. The growing chorus of voices speaking out against draconian immigration policies, the tireless work of human rights organizations, and the resilience of migrants themselves offer a beacon of hope. These voices are challenging the status quo, demanding a more just and compassionate approach to migration. The path towards a just and sustainable solution to the global migration crisis will be long and arduous. It requires a fundamental shift in perspectives, a recognition of our shared humanity, and a commitment to upholding the rights and dignity of all individuals, regardless of their immigration status.